doctor eventually said that he couldn't find any sign of disease at all, but I do have significant lung damage, scarring. I used to have a lot of breathing problems for a number of years. I was living as I knew Christopher when I was in the robe as a monk. I'd often get chest problems, and one of the nuns from another monastery told me about this Buteyko thing. It seemed really remarkable and wonderful. I had given up on all these wonderful things. Then she sent me some books and literature about Buteyko. And I had this experience when I was living in the forest. I remember walking at night. I was getting seriously out of breath. I always used to have to carry a puffer with me or something. I was always dependent on those. And it was really cold and dark and miserable, and I just wanted to get back to my house. I knew I was fiddling for it in my pockets, but couldn't find it, kept walking. Basically, there was a bit of a steep incline, so I just sort of held my breath and kept going, got to the top, and then there's this beautiful moonlit sky. And I stopped for a moment, I thought, wow, amazing. And then I thought, oh, breathing seems to be all right now. And I didn't ever find my inhaler. It seemed to happen naturally. I made a note of that. I couldn't figure out what it was. So when I started reading some of the theory, I thought, well, maybe that was it. And so I first thing I did was tape up my mouth one night with a plaster. And I used to work up pretty much clockwork, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, every morning for some years, out of breath. And it just didn't happen. Having taped my mouth up didn't happen anymore. So I thought, well, quite remarkable. So I had to look at doing a training, finding someone to teach me properly, but I had no funds. All I did was, when I noticed I was out of breath, I used to hold my breath and just keep going and push, and walk or something like that. And it seemed to work quite well. I then travelled off to Asia. By that time, I'd given up my inhalers already. I used to do a lot of walking, long distance walking, but in Asia, tropics and it was humid and things like that, I was getting into a lot of trouble. Problem with, as a Buddhist monk with no money, getting regular medication is always a hassle. In the UK, it was just easy. I could ask someone to get me something, but when you're abroad, it's tricky. So I just kind of muddled on with it. I had the odd chest infections. And then I went on a pilgrimage to India, just walking with an alms bowl, getting food from people I met on the street and so on. I was always prepared for bad stomach, but what I wasn't prepared for was the dust. And I ended up with a fantastic chest infection, coughing my guts up for a few weeks, and then crawled back to Bangkok. They did a breath function test. Didn't have very much Thai, but in survival language. And the doctor kept saying to my person who took me there, 20%, 20% lung function. I could barely walk upstairs. Talking was hard, and lungs are full of gunk. He said, oh, well, it's emphysema, rapidly onset emphysema. The doctor there, very good English, trained in the States, whatever, and he gave me about 10 years maximum, and that would be it, And he gave me a lot of inhalers. And I thought, I don't really want to go down this inhaler thing anymore, I went to see Christopher. He told me, I needed to learn properly. Fine. He just took me on. So we worked together for a few weeks and thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, sometimes I hated him, as you do when you do sort of training. He was like a kind of, coach. It was hard bloody work. My family and friends wanted me to get proper checked up. I was doing a lot of Buteyko work. I still refused to take any medication. And gradually, I got better pauses. Not very good pauses. I wasn't expecting very good, but the practice was, I was getting much stronger. That was 10 years ago last year. I gave up the monkhood. My mother was in very bad way. She's blind, turned blind quite late in life, couldn't cope. So I decided, okay, I'll make a change. So I'll come to look after her. And my objective of being here was to outlive my mother. That was it. So anyway, last year was the 10th anniversary, and I was doing okay. I can manage to do quite a lot of things, still go for long walks. My doctor's surgery was always trying to get me to get some further tests done. I still wasn't using any medication. I went twice with chest infections for antibiotics or something like that in those 10 years. That's all I had. Used to have them every year. And they were kind of puzzle. They do breath function tests, and I'd get 25, nearly 30%. I thought, well, that's 50% increase, pretty good. They did all sorts of scans, CT scan I had, and lots of breath function tests. And the doctor eventually said that he couldn't find any sign of disease at all, but I do have significant lung damage, scarring, very significant scarring. So I still run on about 30%, it's a bit more than half a lung. But to celebrate, I bought a bicycle, so I cycle everywhere now. I keep going with it. I don't do very many long pauses anymore. I just practice when I'm exercising. I always keep my mouth shut. I try and keep air hunger, pause occasionally when I feel I need to. Mostly I don't do very much at all. And the test at the hospital, they were really kind of surprised when I go up there. They said, I don't have any medication. I cycled around. It's quite hilly around here. I managed quite well. My lung function's around 30%. I guess I have to accommodate it, really. My bike is some electric boost support. Once a week I go out with a friend, do about 30 odd miles at a time. My friend has serious heart condition. He's a good bit older than me. He's nearly 80. And we have the same bikes, and we kind of both collapse about the same point at the steep hill, so we're quite well matched. And but he's actually very good shape. And so I live a pretty full life, but I do recognise that I have very significant scarring in the lungs. So always very, very grateful to Christopher and all. He did a lot for the rest of the community, actually. So I recognise you need to go out of your comfort zone to really make it work, as far as the training was concerned, in fact, in order to get the body working more efficiently. And it's difficult to do that on your own. You need someone to kind of encourage you. Christopher was good at that. Keep me going. And time it becomes quite all right. It's quite natural. So that's my story with it, really. I continue to avoid inhalers and things like that. I've used a bit of prednisolone around times of difficulties. Well, that's about all I've used. The doctor likes to give me, when they go in for my breath function test, they give me some Ventolin or something like that to see, and it doesn't make any difference really whether I have it or not. It doesn't change much whether I take it or not, so they don't push it on me. I get 32% if I use it. Something I just said, well, I'm not going to poison myself just for that.